Hello, everyone. It's David, and I am thrilled to be with all of you today. I know there's so many people on right now from all over the world. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I don't know where you are. For me, it's noon, and the day has begun, of course. But I'm here today to, of course, address so many of our new steps in our life. I don't want to perceive this to be looking at what we can do to step out of the insanity and concerns and negativity. Which, by the way, I'm not lessening that, and I'm not saying that that is not what's happening right now. I want us to find a way to literally reconnect, refresh, and restart. And this is a time where I feel, at least for myself and many of the people that I've had an opportunity to be doing these calls with and getting a chance to speak to so many people in the industry specifically, that we have to really reevaluate where we may have been back in March, where we may have been not only in our careers, our personal lives, and how we perceived what we were going to be doing next in our businesses. And it's a legitimate question to ask what we were going to be doing. But here's the thing that I found personally for myself, for my husband Joey, who we're partners with, and how we can allow ourselves to really have a sense of strong power of positivity. And that to me is, I think, what keeps us going forward. It's very easy to get stuck in a rut, very easy to understand that maybe the business is going to take a while for it to ramp up, which I'll get to in a second. But it's important now for us to understand that we have to present ourselves, first of all, for ourselves, second of all, for our, if we have children, for our families and for our partners. We have to look and understand what are the things that we could do? What are the ways that we can um, behave and also prepare? So when you have this power of positivity, it's not just in what you believe, it's how you portray yourself. It's how you carry yourself. It's the power in your voice. It's the tonality in how you speak. It's how you're now reconnecting and not necessarily referring to what's ahead as a worry, but looking ahead at what's going to be a possibility. And I think power and possibility are two great words to put together and equate as something that is really not just strong, but a way for us to see that tomorrow definitely has possibilities. Now, here's the thing I've been sharing a lot, and perhaps some of you who are on right now may have heard me say this before, but I have spoken to people, and I know people, and this is something that's been the course of my career over 30 years, is that when something goes down, when something happens that's unexpected, such as what we're in right now, um, people could take that moment and use that as a crutch or as an excuse for perhaps the success of their business not being as successful, which, by the way, success is seen much differently upon each person. Success is more time with your family. Success is more money in the bank. Success is having a lot of different clients. So it's all relative to how you choose to determine and define what success is. But we cannot use this moment that has come upon us unexpectedly to now say, I knew my company wasn't working, or I should have worked harder. Well, here's the message I want to give to you. This moment is a moment that you could use to say, this is the time that you can do all the things you want to do and work harder at making your business even that much more successful. And perhaps, by the way, success for you isn't necessarily having 20 events a year or 30 events a year. Perhaps it's having 10 events a year, 10 events that are more profitable, which cause you to perhaps not be so frantic in the way we run our businesses. So this power of positivity, it's not easy. Trust me. Listen, people assume that I'm incredibly positive, and I do my very best to be as positive as I can for as many people as I need to. But there are days that I wake up and I have anxiety, and it's been that case over the course of these gosh, since March 15th, I've been home with my family, and that's a long time. But I worry more, I'm anxious more, I'm concerned more, but you can't let that last long. That fear is normal. That fear is expected. But if you sit in that fear of anxiety and worry and concern, there's no possible way that you can look forward to tomorrow and understand how to run your businesses. And what might your business look like tomorrow? It might be a completely different business than it was yesterday. You might have a great new idea today that with this time that we're home, you can develop, which is what we're doing. We're sitting and creating new programs and new business platforms that can't launch today or launch tomorrow, but we're prepared to be ready to hit go on new ideas. So we're not sitting idling, waiting for where that income might come from. And everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different financial challenge or financial expectations. And you all have to individually understand what you must do and not just sit back and wait, because sitting back and waiting is like being at the end of a line and the line closes and you missed out on the opportunity to get on the ride. So make sure you get first in line, or at least at the top of the line, so you can literally be part of what is going to happen next. And here's the thing. What will events look like? It's the largest question, the most asked question from me, from the media, from any interview that I have been doing, from all of these video calls on people that have been on with me. What are events going to look like? I don't have that answer. And I don't have that answer because I don't think we are prepared to understand what that might be. However, by not having the answer doesn't mean I don't have a solution or a way that we will work with the venues. And think about this. Joey and I were talking about this briefly before I got on, and he made a very valid point, Joey, and he said, you know, Disney is prepared. Disney is prepared to open. We took that as a lead when we had to cancel a couple events in our business pre-March 15th, that Disney shuts. Disney's telling us what we need to do in the essence of what's going to happen next. However, if they're opening and opening at a 50% less capacity, I'm calling that a ramp up. That ramp up means that events may need possibly to be less in the quantity of guests or the increase of the space that the venue needs to hold guests for more social distancing. Less people at a table, perhaps not dance floors in the beginning, or dance floors that are larger, which will be hard to control because people, as you know, we're humans, we like to be connected. And right now, celebrations, we can't physically connect. And those things will define themselves as we begin to unfold and ramp up with celebrations. Here's the thing. When all states open, when events can begin, it will not be what we had been doing pre all of what has happened currently. Will we get there? I certainly hope so. I'm pretty confident we will, but that's going to take a period of time. So you need to be prepared to understand how to now build the structure for your floor plans for your future events. You have to understand the capacity of people, which equates to the cost of how you can handle the space when a hotel says, here's my ballroom that holds 500, but you only can have 200, 250. The hotel still has to cover the overhead of their expenses. We still have to be able to make sure our clients can afford to be able to do that. So there's a lot of unknowns. You know, that song Into the Unknown, we are in it right now. And it is not, it's not a funny scenario, but we are in the unknown. And unknown for all of us in this industry is not something that we like, because we are type A personalities. We are organizers, directors, producers, choreographer. We are in the business of telling stories live, telling stories for clients and for their guests. So we need the information, and we can't step forward being into the unknown. So I want everyone right now listening to understand that we have to begin to become proactive, going back to, being positive, the power of positivity. And for me, I have always done that my entire career. The power of positivity has been a formula for me, which is equated to success. There are often times when we as professionals in the event industry go into meetings or speak to clients or with vendors or hotel professionals that we don't have answers immediately. And everybody wants to ask a question and get the answer. Even if the answer is wrong, they want an answer. I don't believe in that. I believe in leading with confidence and believing with strength and believing with as much accuracy as we can. But if we don't have the right answer, we can be held accountable for providing for them incorrect directions. So we want to make sure, again, the positivity is important, the confidence is important, but moving forward, we need to go forward with strength, with hope, with direction, with focus, and with excitement still. That's what's the most important part of what we do. You know, right before I came home, I was on the road for 8 days, traveling with 2 of my staff members across the country in complete panic, anxiety for me, because I wanted to make sure I got home and the airports hadn't closed. And of course, I wanted to stay healthy and not go home sick to my family. But one of the things that I would love to share with you, it's a 60-second video. And this video is the last event that we did. And I had just spoken to this client 2 nights ago because they're in lockdown in New York City. The event was at the Plaza Hotel. And this event I keep watching because it was the last time we were together as a team, my company, putting together a celebration. And I just want to show you this 60-second clip because this is what we do. This is what we strive to create, is magical, emotional storytelling. And this is the last story I have gotten to tell, but it will not be the last story moving forward in my future. So just take a look at this. It's really beautiful. Coming up.
And always remember that the relationship is the most important part of life itself.
Well, that will remind myself and hopefully remind all of you that it is so necessary to continue to do what we do. Because more now than ever, I've been talking to people in the television industry and obviously the event industry. We are going to be starving for connection. We're going to be starving for emotion. We're going to be seeking out places that we can be, that we can reconnect. And I find that to be an enormous responsibility for all of us in a good way, a great way, because I often feel that many of our clients and people that are contracting us to do what we do so beautifully is that they don't realize that the amount of work that we have to do to put together, let alone one event and multiple events in the course of a year, requires our compassion, it requires our dedication, it requires our time. Sometimes it often requires taking time away from our families to be able to be with these clients on the weekends. So as much as we may have, or some of you may have complained that, oh my gosh, I don't have enough time for ourselves. Well, take this time right now to appreciate this time, because I can tell you that it has given me the ability to understand that the time I did not have with family, specifically on weekends, has become more of a gift for us, at least for me and for my husband. And it's important for us to find the balance as we reconnect and we revamp and we move forward. And please, I strongly ask of you not to go back and be in the grind of losing yourself and losing who you are, what you are, and what you do. And I'm not saying as an event planner or a designer or a vendor in the industry. I'm literally saying as a person, because we still are people. And we are people who have an enormous amount of compassion and excitement and enthusiasm to create beautiful celebrations. I know that when I got into this business, I was completely unaware of what this business was, and I didn't understand it. Couldn't really grasp the fact that people hired people with money. It's relevant to if it was a small or large budget, but they hired people like us to put together these moments. And I do refer to this as I did previously, was we are in the business of storytelling, live storytelling. We're not doing a movie or television. We are doing it in real time. And I can't think of many people that, or in an industry that does things in real time. A doctor, a surgeon does things in real time. I'm not comparing us to a surgeon, but I am comparing us to the fact that we are going at the pace of the party and the pace of the expectations of what we need to deliver to the very end, which is a magical moment. I would love to, if we can, open up the questions right now. I'll get back to some more content, but I'd love to answer anyone. If you go to the chat button, we'll take a look at the questions as they come up, and I'll answer them. And if anyone has not had a chance to have questions of theirs answered, we will be receiving them and answering them on a timely basis from our end, so we can get as much information to you as possible. I know there's a lot of you on right now, so we'll do our very best. So any questions that I can answer, I would love to do so.
So it looks like Kristen from Colorado, she's worried that the state's governor said they may not be able to do buffet meal service. And there are a lot of couples on a budget. And so how can she work with them? Because they might not be able to upgrade to a plated meal.
Great question, Kristen. And not being able to, the governor saying in Colorado that you're not able to do buffet service, I actually understand that, and I actually respect it, and I actually agree with him or her. And I feel that you're going to have to speak with your catering director or salesperson at the hotel and understand what food and what service and what altercations can be made to the budget to be able for this to happen. It now may mean that our clients who may have had a guest count of 100 or 150 may need to reevaluate what their guest count is. And I've always strongly said this pre where we are today, that clients' expectations of budgets is not necessarily always the vendor's price point. It's often, do you need to have 200 guests? Can you have a wedding for 150 and save the budget on the 50 people, which is typically predominantly, food and beverage, and then design for the tables, and save that money to be able to get the things that you would like to have for your celebration. And that's a perfect scenario here. They may need to cut the guest count to allow for the wedding to happen. This isn't about you can or you cannot. This is a matter of this is how it has to be right now.
There was a question also in regards to, that ties into this one. A lot of caterers are very concerned. We got a lot of questions from caterers actually leading up to today of, how can they survive? What are they going to need to do going forward?
Caterers going forward, I think, are going to have, and I've spoke about this, where caterers and venues are probably in the scenario of having the most challenges right now. Again, with the unknown, but more importantly, because it's handled by people and it's, the level of contagiousness of passing a virus. And it was something that I think many of the industry leaders are very clear on how they've run their large catering companies. There's a little loosey-goosey going on with in the past, I should say, with catering companies and servers and behind the house, especially off-site premise catering. Sometimes may not necessarily not following the rules, but there's sort of a little lenience on things that could have been done possibly a little bit better. This is a time now where safety is so important, and being able to understand how it can be served. Gloves and masks may be required by waiters and waitresses, which I'm pretty confident that will be the case. And it's a matter of explaining to your client. Explaining to your client once you have the knowledge specific to what part of the country or world that you're in. And you have to share this with our consumers. We need to have food and bars for our events, and hotels need to provide space, or venues need to have space for our events. It's just a matter of what will that be, how will that happen, and how will you be able to execute it and still make a profit. I still do believe guest counts are going to be adjusted both for client purposes, venue purposes, catering purposes, and basically for moving forward as we ramp up.
So
just going through all the questions, there's a lot.
You started to hit on this one, and this one also has come up a lot in the questions of how do you stay positive and focused during this time?
How do I stay positive and focused during this time?
Yeah, you mentioned that we're all human, and
we are.
It's okay to have a bad day.
Yesterday wasn't my best day. I get very anxious when I'm trying to accomplish something, and yesterday was a day that I had a difficult time. I'm going to be really honest with you. I had a really difficult time yesterday accomplishing a project, and I got very frustrated and I got very discouraged. It shut me down in the essence that I wasn't able to do anything further beyond that. So I took a break. I just basically sat back. I did pour myself a glass of whiskey, and I had to chill out, because we are all in this together, but we're all in this with a different definition, with a different outcome, with a different scenario around us. We are all worried about our families, we're all worried about our community, we're all worried about our industry, we're all worried about our world. And it's a lot for any of us to carry on. For me, my children come first, my husband comes first, I come at the end of that list in this house, my choice. And I want to make sure that they're all fine. And I want to make sure when I woke up this morning, that I was being able to be as fully present as possible for all of you, because I feel like I hold a very large responsibility to provide that positivity. And it doesn't mean if you're providing positivity that you're walking around 100% positive. If that's the case, you're going to absolutely fail and crumble. You can't be 100% positive or 100% perfect, but you can be 100% aware how to be positive and do your very best.
There's also, some people are out there have sent in a lot of questions about new opportunities and looking at things like virtual packages and such.
Sure.
One of our, Alan Katz, he sent a thing that his officiants are getting a lot of requests for virtual weddings. How does he go about creating wedding vendor teams that can help to execute virtual weddings? Virtual
anything right now, and virtual weddings. Celebrations. This is a time where you should be, all of you should be embracing the opportunity of doing this. And you're not, let me just sort of preface this by saying, by doing a virtual celebration, virtual wedding, and virtually officiating the ceremony, this isn't a time to be giving this away for free. This is a time to be running your business. You're giving an outlet, you're giving an opportunity to be able to do your businesses differently. Now, obviously you can't charge the cost you would have if it was a wedding in the normalcy of what we knew before, but these are things that people are looking for. I had just seen, someone just sent me, gosh, who was it that sent me that beautiful photo of the bride and groom walking down, bride and father of the bride walking down the aisle, and the couple got married, and they shot it virtually, and it was a room of 300 seats, and it was empty, which I got goosebumps from. And I almost, for the first moment I saw the photo, we should try to find the photo and post it, because if you haven't seen it. And on the seats were photos of all of the guests, how they would have been seated for their wedding. At first I thought, gosh, that's eerie. And at second I thought, kudos and bravo to that bride for moving forward and not letting this stop her. And she had the wedding, and she virtually telecasted to her family and loved ones. And I thought, listen, That's a way, it's a smart way for any business person to find a way to virtually create packages, create them, build them, design them. And by the way, when this unknown is ramped up into where we go in the future, that doesn't have to go away. That could be a new business model for an arm of your business.
I think, Michelle has a great point here that they're discussing different ways of handling their bar differently, having one staff member handle the money, the other mixing drinks, and then a gloved staff cleaning the table. What other recommendations do you see? Do you see that also maybe with like the pass hors d'oeuvres? If you're going to have maybe somebody with a pass hors d'oeuvre tray and somebody that's actually taking them off?
It's more service. And Michelle, correct? Michelle, that's a great question. This will require more labor from the catering company or the venue itself. I do think that the bars have always been very packed for people to go receive their drinks. So I think the bars will have to be larger. I think the service will have to be increased as in bar staff and back of house staff. And I do think that we just did a wedding before that last wedding I showed you, and it was in a very prestigious venue. And I can remember looking at the bar and realizing that the bartender, went to the side and scooped the ice with his hand, no glove, and put it into the glass and poured the drink. These are things that should never have been happening. Now I find that these are things that will be a not only requirement, but it will be, necessary across the board on all capacities of our business. So spreading the space out for the bar, having silos of space so you can ice, pour, serve, and keeping it moving along. And perhaps it'll just be much more organized, but I do believe it will wind up costing more in labor.
Yeah, I think Kimberly has a question that's probably on a lot of people's minds with the reschedulings and replanning of events. And how do you just handle that with the client that doesn't really understand that they had an event planned for June of this year and now it's being pushed till June of next year. So all that planning that Kimberly did, she now has to do again for June of next year. And it's not just that simple. There's time and money lost on that. How does she deal with the client?
Well, I will tell you personally how I will handle it and how we have been handling it, because all of our events for 2020 are no longer existing for our clients, and they're all pushed to 2021. Our last large event was holding on to possibly pushing from June to November, and now it's officially in January. We're not charging more money for the planning of what we were going to be doing for our 2020 events. I mean, if in fact you're doing the exact same thing for the exact same client in the exact same location or close to that, you should be just carrying over the time into the new scheduled date. You shouldn't be having to do that much more work other than, yes, new invitations will need to go out with an invitation company. And we need to be very gracious about this. We also need to be very sensitive about price gouging people for having to charge twice, because that's typically not in our contracts, which, by the way, this is a whole new legalese element that we'll be adding, if not have already added, correct? Mm-hmm. into our contracts if this were ever to happen again. I mean, we have the legal language in our contracts if something were to happen, and whether it was to take us down or something was canceled for whatever reason, nothing like COVID. But we all need to be prepared for the future when it comes to that. But in your situation that you're questioning, I'm hoping that you're not thinking about charging more money, because this is the time to be grateful for the business that we still will have, because it hasn't gone away. You'll have balances to collect, and you'll have the time now to work on it. But be very careful. And this is to everyone. If you've got a client that has been rescheduled, you need to sort of lay on the line in a very, very kind, positive, sensitive way, and feeling connected to them that we planned the wedding. This is not a redo. Now, a redo is an additional cost. When I say redo, oh, I've rethought it and I don't want the same venue, or oh, I rethought it and maybe I want a different look to the wedding. That is not the case. So if you are very crystal clear in saying, we're moving forward with exactly what we were doing, I'm following you for the journey. Or if they're asking for all these changes, then you have to be very clear upfront immediately. I'm going to have to charge you for that additional time, because our time is worth a lot, and often our time isn't paid for.
Hi, David. Can you hear me?
I can, Lisa.
Hi, how are you? Hi, everyone. We have a question from Miami, a DJ, Tony. He's wondering, what do you feel the new protocol for people to dance at events would be now?
I think this is the one item that we, and I'm sorry to say this for DJs and entertaining companies, that we just don't know yet. I've been trying to find out information on it, and the immediate response I would say, and I have no backing to say this, is that the dance floors will be increased, and the control on how many people would be on the dance floor would be decreased. I'm not 100% sure how in the world that can be done. So I'm thinking for the ramp up process that events may happen, music will be heard, dancing may not start up right away, because that's a really, really hard thing to control. So I'm sorry, I don't have that information, but I think that's my intuition of what that first ramp up stage would be.
There was a question in here also about the Indian weddings and events that are very large guest counts. We just did the one in January. How are those going to be impacted, especially for planners where that's their focus, is those 300, 400, 500 guest count events?
It's the same question of space. You've got a wedding we did an Indian wedding just a couple months ago, and it was 450, 500 people at a venue that barely was able to hold 400, 500 people. It would need to be decreased. I mean, the space would be the space if that's what they're going to continue to keep, and they're going to probably have to, unfortunately, decrease the guests that will be coming. In an Indian series of celebrations, I mean, not to say that this is what would work traditionally, it's not what would be expected, is that maybe you do the wedding ceremony with X amount of guests, and then the celebration that follows typically the next night might be a different series of guests who couldn't make it to the first event. So this way here, the family and the immediate family are experiencing all the traditional cultural celebrations, but the guests may have to vary from event to event. We have a wedding coming up that's 2,500 people in Indonesia, and I don't know right now how many guests will be showing up. The only thing they have going for them is that they're moving into a venue that has just opened and is massive. So they have the space. I don't know if they have the space for still what we are planning on doing, but that will all have to be cleared. And I think every mandate, right, Joey, is going to be a mandate that's very specific to the state. And then culturally, it'll be mandated by what part of the world you're in.
David, we have a question from Angie. She's wondering how you would handle a client if they want to disobey the current laws or recommendations of social distancing. She has a client getting married on their property and wants to continue with a small wedding, but probably have more than 10 people. Would you remove yourself from that? Are there legal ramifications? How would you handle a situation like that?
Great question. Not surprised. I would say that you need to remove yourself. You have to write to them, when I say remove, I'm not saying remove yourself and not get paid for your services. I'm saying remove yourself from the responsibilities and not being present at the wedding to execute your services, but you're making a choice as the client. The client's making a choice to break a law or break a requirement that's necessary for the current mandate that we're in for COVID, but you can still keep the business by just being responsible enough to say, I can't abide by the requests that you're expecting me to do that is not allowed. And they then continue on their way. They break the rules, which is not right. And then you're able to keep, obviously, the business.
Well, I think the other piece of that is that you definitely want to check with your attorney if they're going to have that event at your venue.
Well, if it's did you say it was at our venue?
Yeah.
Oh, if it's at your venue, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. If it's at the venue you work at, then you have a completely different thing. Speak to the owner, or if you own it, speak to your attorneys to understand. Your attorneys may say, you cannot have that client come into this building because this building is now legally doing something that's proper.
Do you want to continue on, and then we'll go back to
questions
in a little bit?
So the importance of staying connected and continuing communication like we're doing right now. People think that this is actually a really difficult thing to do. I actually think it's been a really enjoyable thing to do. I can speak about it on behalf of staying connected and communicating on behalf of two scenarios, right? We all have a personal and professional life. Personally, I've had the opportunity to spend more time speaking to people that I normally would not speak with, because I'm very much of an introvert, and I'm not a big phone talker, and I'm not someone that truly looks to spend an hour on a phone call, or I'm just someone that catches in and looks to, check and see how people are doing. But I have found the joy of literally FaceTiming, Zoom calling, whatever format we're using, to really have eye contact with family and friends. I've reconnected with some immediate family that I just have not kept up relationships with friends that I have not seen, I've been seeing. I made a scheduled call with a new friend of mine every Tuesday and Thursday, and it could be a 5-minute checkup or a 30-minute phone call. But it's kind of nice to know that you don't feel so isolated and alone when you can see somebody and talk with them as well, and get a chance to laugh and be silly. And now when it comes to business, we have been communicating with a lot of people. Some of these future projects that we're working on, we've been taking many phone calls. We had several yesterday. We had several the day before. I'm doing a lot of interviews. A lot of information has been shared. So I think it's really important for you to find ways to communicate. Now, to stay relevant is the same thing as communicating. And how do you stay relevant? As a business owner, you must make yourself connected both to your existing clients, assuming you have existing clients right now, and letting them know that you're here. And I don't mean calling them up and saying, all right, what are we going to do for your wedding? What are we going to do at the new scheduled redate? This is where you put the friend hat on. This is where you put the emotion in, and you check up to see if they're okay, see how their emotions are running, going back to my level of positivity, being very present with them, and keep it short. Don't make it about the celebration, make it about the relationship. And then vendors, we're getting wonderful communication from vendors. Vendors reaching out to us, sending, clever notes to myself, clever ideas, things to keep them high on the radar. It's very easy in this business to find the next shiny light. I mean by shiny light, the next vendor that wants to get your attention to hire them. And right now, every vendor is trying to get a job and get into the eyes and the attention of a possible planner. I had a phone call that came to me, a random phone call. I assumed it was just a robocall on my phone. I don't know why I picked it up, but I did. But it was a company, I'm not quite sure how they got my number, but a company trying to sell me their services. And it was done on such a soft, personal, emotional, communicative way that I stopped and listened. And a week and a half later, someone else from the company called and wanted to soft sell, and I was not really interested, but got into the call and asked me to schedule a phone call for them for next week for me to see what their goods are for future events. It was done so well. Will I use them? I have no idea. But the point is that they were kind enough and emotional enough and connected enough to introduce themselves to me. I'd love to go over, take a look at the image of your brand DNA. This is very important. It's something that took me years to understand, and years to understand what it really meant and how it can change. So this slide shows the importance of understanding what your business or brand DNA is. And most people assume it is yourself, or assume it is what it is that you do. If you're a floral designer, it's your flowers. If you're a planner, it's your organization. Some of them are creativity. If you're a rental company, it's product. That's not your business DNA. Your business DNA has to be incredibly clear. And a lot of you should have your brand or business DNA on your website or in your presentations. Explain what makes you different. Like, for example, the brand DNA for David Tutera. It has two brand DNAs. There's a brand DNA for the brand as in products and retail and all of that. And then there's a brand DNA for events, which are very different. Somewhat very similar, but very different consumers. And the brand DNA you have has to be something that shows that for us, that we are present. We are physically present to present to you a great celebration. It shows and it has to describe that we love what we do. That's not an assumption. Don't assume your clients know that you love what you do. Often I've met many people in the business who love what they do, at least they say it, but they don't look like they love what they do or verbalize or create that or emote that idea that they love what they do. The other important thing is making sure that you are allowing them to know, which is what we do in our brand DNA, that we're all about experiences. You'll notice in a lot of our content, the word experience is used consistently, and that's because that is what we do. Like right now, I'm creating an experience. When we do an event, we're creating an experience. When we're doing a conference, we create the David Tutera experience. People are coming to see us and learn and take 3 days to learn about what we know so much about, giving them an experience to take home and letting people know that you truly are a professional and you lead by excellence and you're showing your genuine care for how you execute your clients' needs. So your business DNA can pop up with words like I have on the screen. Your core values, trust, clarity, connection. Keep it concise, simple words in your brand and business DNA, and then allow your clients to ask you questions so they understand the values of your business and what your company provide. This is so important, so overlooked, and often never done. And this will really craft and allow you to build that business even stronger. And your DNA can shift, it really can. You know, just like a person in a relationship, you shift your reason why you love someone and loving them more so you can shift your DNA to better describe to your potential or existing consumer what it is that you do and why you do it. More questions?
Yeah, we can do more questions.
Yeah, I love questions.
So here is Ty from LA. She's trying to figure out how to reinvent herself, how to create new opportunities right now. There is everything about virtual industry or virtual events. She owns a venue space, I'm assuming, and so her idea is to promote a fun retro drive-in event option to her clients. What are your thoughts about that?
There is nothing right now I think is ridiculous. Well, there are, but most of the ideas I think are not. I mean, we're taking our daughter Cielo on Saturday for a parade in cars for her classmate to be able to have her birthday from afar. And it's, to me, I thought, oh my God, that's incredibly sad. But then I realized, oh my God, that's something she'll never forget. And it could be really interesting. So yes, if you have the space to do that, absolutely. And again, it's keeping, here's the most important thing. Whatever you choose to do, virtually or non, and communication via however you want to connect, it's keeping yourself relevant. And if you're not, this is a moment in time that everybody, I'll always have said this industry is oversaturated with people in our industry. I know because everyone loves to do what we do, but this might be the moment in life where the oversaturation of people in the industry might trickle out because they're not staying relevant. That may sound negative or a little strong, but the importance is we, including myself, need to be in the eyes of every person that knows us in this business, and the ones that don't need to find us because we're coming up with ideas that are unique and relevant.
David, we have a question from Natalie. She's asking, what do you recommend to those planners who specialize in destination weddings? Would you change your business to gear more towards local clients or focus on changing strategies overall?
I would do both. I think first, in the destination business, obviously right now you're kind of on a halt because of travel. And I think that expanding your destination business, to me, you should already have expanded it to local as well. Because to me, a destination is going anywhere. And if you reevaluate your business model, and let's just say that your destination are the Caribbean islands, or your destination is Europe, which clearly isn't going to happen right now. Why can't your destination be the destination of the venue, and you treat each event like you're going on a trip? And it could be, a venue that's, I'm going to make this up, it's a vineyard that's, 20 or 45 minutes away. It's still a destination. You still have to get in a vehicle to get to a location, to get out, to enjoy, and to come back. And I think that's a wonderful way and a great way to also reduce the cost. If guests are now challenged by budgets, destination local celebrations, as well as future destinations travel, is a great way to decrease the guest count, to allow yourself to allow the client to be able to afford a wedding visually that might be more interesting to them. So don't get rid of one area, just create two silos of your business.
So right now, a lot of planners and designers and other professionals out there are doing consultations via FaceTime. What do you recommend as the best way to proceed with these, whether they're wedding consultations or other consultations over FaceTime? Any tips to make it work, to make it valuable for the potential client?
Yes. I don't know if you've noticed that in the pages that we're coming up with visuals, those are design boards. I've done an enormous, the wedding I'm doing in Indonesia is all through Zoom. I go out, I do a site spec, I go back out, I do a meeting, and then I go back out and I do the wedding. That's the only time I have face-to-face in-person meetings. It's predominantly what I do with most of my clients because we're here in California and a majority of our work is not here in California. So in this situation, I can tell you my model and how I work, which would be a great model for all of us to work. It saves you time in travel, which saves you money, and it also gives you solid accuracy because when you're face-to-face with somebody doing a video call, you're able to pull up and show visuals. A lot of times, some of the events that we do on the East Coast, what we'll do is I'll send the story or design boards ahead so they can look, and then we refer to it together on a video call. And it's also important, to think about this. Before we had video conferencing or any of this technology, our form of, I'm in the business long enough to talk about this, is that you would get on a phone call, right? The thing with a phone call is you can't see the reaction in someone's face. I can always tell if someone's telling me, I love it, right? But they don't love it because they don't want to insult me. Or you have a client that just simply doesn't care and they'll tell you they can't stand it. But the point is that if you can have one-on-one connection like I have with each of you right now, and you're trying to have a consultation, you're going to get a lot of information. We've done, first of all, you want to limit it. You set it up for a 1-hour consultation or a 1-hour, whatever meeting you want to call it. There are clients that we've unfortunately had that, 1 hour will turn into 2, which will turn into 3, and then it winds up becoming absolutely, completely not productive. So you want to make sure you've got a schedule, you've got an objective, and then you can continue to have them as long as you want as you continue to plan these parties.
David, we have a question from Linda. She is asking, how do we cut through all of the noise on social media and virtual that's going on right now? Seems like everyone wants to be an expert and they're having live videos and webinars like you, of course, who are an expert. How do we, it's also overwhelming. How do we cut through all the noise?
That's a great question. And it's a question that I don't know if I can fully answer because I wouldn't want to disrespect the people that are going on and trying to provide intel. But I can say that everybody wants to be someone and everybody wants to share information. The only person that can determine if the information or the person is providing you the content that you wish to hear is you. I have been in a couple, I've watched a couple, I should say, online people being or attempting to be experts. And I can read right through it in a second. This is not the moment in time, nor at any time really, to try to get your 15 minutes of fame and then, become someone that is not, and I'm not saying that's what I'm doing. It's taken me 33 years to be able to be an expert. And I have content that I believe is strong for me. People may not agree with me, but, I'm not pretending to be someone or pretending to have information in the effort to be more recognizable as someone in the business. So I can't stop them from doing it, but I can stop the people watching it that you can tell fairly fast, and you should just bail out because I don't want you to be stuck in that clutter, as Linda said, and it's a lot of noise. It's a lot of just busy nothing, And we need clarity right now, like I hope I'm providing for everyone. Because if there's no clarity then forces you into no hope. No hope gives you no direction, and no direction gives you any business.
I think Lisa Dean has a great question for you. Some people have those save the dates and the invites, they've already gone out for their event maybe in the fall or early part of next year, and now they want to reevaluate that guest count. How do you politely go about uninviting and not being tacky? Do you worry about that, or do you let it weed itself out?
No, I think as a host, which is the person are we talking about the party host or the planner?
The planner working with their client.
So I think
the client has sent out all the invites.
Okay, so the client sent out all these invites. It's been postponed, and they want to reduce the guest count for later. That's a tricky scenario. So we have a client right now that had an amazing event we were doing in Scotland in June, and it's been moved to June 2021. And he sent it to me first, reviewed it, we looked at it together. He sent it out from the party host, which I think is the kindest thing to do. I think coming from a planner feels like you've copped out as the person that's hosting the party, but he did it in such a way where he made it easy for him to reduce the guest count by saying that the changes of time and the changes of the date we're going to be making some alterations to the party, and he'll lead that up with possibly suggesting that he'll be reducing the guest count. You can't just assume your guests are going to be fine with that, especially in this particular event going to Scotland, going to a castle. I think I would be very disappointed if I was on the second guest list, but he set it up. It's a process. You can't just go right out the gate and say, well, sorry, things have been moved and our guest count went from 100 to 50 and these are the 50 people we picked. That's then turned into the A and the B list, and you're not on the A list, you're on the B list. So that's social sensitivity that you have to have, and you as a planner and client have to sort of dance that dance and decide who's going to communicate. I would suggest the planner so the client doesn't take the brunt of family and friends disappointment.
I know you're getting ready to wrap up. There's just one last question for you, David, personally. How are you managing every day with no Starbucks?
I haven't had Starbucks since March 15th. The first week of having no Starbucks, I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And then I managed to barely get through it. And then the second week, Joey started making really good coffee. And then I realized, oh wow, that's a lot of savings in money. Like, it's legitimately, you take things for granted. You realize, my coffee was not that expensive at Starbucks because it was espresso, so it was like $2.95 a glass, a drink, which could sometimes be 2 a day, and then you add that up times 5 or 6 a day, and now you add 0 to that number. It's kind of nice. So it's funny how you learn to love things when it doesn't cost you anything. So thank you for asking, but I have a little coffee left here, and I'll with that in closing, I'll say cheers to everybody for being focused, being present, staying calm, and the power of positivity, because if we lead with excellence, we have excellence. And every day is a different day, and every day will be unique. Our job is to figure out how we remain relevant. Thank you, everybody. I hope to see you again soon. And I'll see you also, if you want to join us, on Saturday at the David Tutera, the dinner with David Tutera, which will be a cocktail party, May 2nd, 5 o'clock Pacific time. We'll have cocktails and drinks and some surprises, and that'll all be fun, nothing serious, okay? Thanks, guys. See you soon.